Hello tubers, welcome to Planet Film. For today's project, we want to modify this medium format camera, the Mamiya Rz 67, and we want to fit it with this recently acquired multiple pinhole unit. We'll remove the lens from the camera body. That reveals the lens mount. Normally you would fit a protective body cap on here just to keep any dust and debris out of the camera, and it's actually the protective body cap we're going to use to mount the pinhole unit itself. Here we have the protective body cap. As you can see, I've already cut a hole in here ready to fit the unit on top. Next we mount the pinhole unit onto the body cap. Very straightforward. We've got a couple of additional holes in here which match up to the mounting holes on the pinhole unit, and we simply sit that on top. Insert our screws. Just a couple of screws in here. And there we have it. Pinhole unit mounted onto the protective body cap. As I mentioned earlier, this is a multiple pinhole unit. What that means is, in this particular unit there are 9 separate pinholes, and they're going to be, each one can be selected by rotating this dial. At the moment we're set on 0.45 pinhole size diameter. If we scroll this round, we're on to 0.4, and again 0.35, 0.3, 0.25 and 0.8. As you can see here, the pinholes are arranged in either ascending or descending order, depending which way you actually rotate the dial. So if we go from 0.8 down to 0.7, down to 0.6, down to 0.5, down to 0.45, down to 0.4, 0.35, 0.3, and the smallest 0.25. So now that we have the pinhole unit mounted onto the protective body cap, all that remains to do now is fit it onto the camera body. I don't know if you noticed earlier, I've actually got a small light rubber band fitted around here. These body caps, quite often, they're not particularly tight or secure on the camera body. They're really only there for when the camera's in storage. So I've put this little rubber band around here just to ensure that the body cap's on there nice and tight, so it doesn't drop off when we're out in the field. So if we orientate this correctly, there's a bayonet mount on here. Push it in and give it a twist, and there we have a lovely tight fitting body cap ready to shoot film. Now that we have our pinhole unit securely fitted to the front of the camera, we need to calculate the focal length. Simple enough thing to do. Let's put a straight edge across the front of the pinhole unit, and we measure the distance to the film plane, which is a millimetre or 2 behind where the dark slide I've got partly pulled out of the back here. And we've got a measurement here of about 124 mil. Now then, that's to the outside of the pinhole unit. The actual pinhole itself is located about 3 or 4 millimetres back within inside the unit. So it's a fair estimate to say that that focal length distance will actually be about 120 millimetres. Okay, so now we have our focal length calculated at 120 millimetres. We know we need an optimum pinhole diameter of 0.45. What we need to do now is calculate the f-stop number. The simple way to do that is to divide the focal length of 120 millimeters by the diameter of the pinhole, 0.45. That gives us an f-stop number of 266. The reason we need the f-stop number is to aid in the calculation of accurate exposure. Of course, what you can do is use one of these simple charts readily available on the internet. You can download them from pinhole websites. And what we have is a range of pinhole diameters running across the top and a range of focal lengths running down the side. All we need to do is find our pinhole diameter of 0.45, scroll down to where it intersects with our focal length of 120mm, and here we see the number 267. What they've done here is they've rounded up the actual calculation, which is 266.6 something. I actually rounded it down to 266. What they've done when they've compiled this chart is rounded it up to 267. So there you have it. We've got the pinhole unit attached to the camera. We've calculated our focal length. We know the optimum pinhole diameter is 0.45. All we need to do now is put a roll of film in and shoot some film. Here we are at the famous green telephone box near Fangdale Beck. First exposure on the pinhole camera. We've got our spirit level set to level on both axes. All we need to do now is release the camera shutter. That raises the mirror. Press the cable release, the lock and cable release. That opens the pinhole shutter. So our estimated exposure of 2 minutes. During that time the sun's gone in a little bit for about the last 30 seconds, so we'll just extend that exposure time. Release the lock on the cable release. That closes the pinhole shutter. Okay, ready for frame 2. We're at St John's Church in Billsdale. Once again we've got the spirit level levelled out on both axes. So again, release the camera shutter. I think we'll be going for a 3-minute exposure this time. Sun's gone in a little bit. Well, as it turns out, the sun got back out within the first few seconds of exposure, so we'll revert back to our original calculation of a 2-minute exposure. We're coming to the end of that now. So again, cable release, lock off. That closes the pinhole shutter. We're safe now. Advance the film. That lowers the mirror in the camera box. All done. Right, another viewpoint of St John's in Billsdale. Once again, we have the spirit level on one axis, pretty much level, near enough. On the other axis, we've got the camera tilted well back. Pure guesstimation on this one, but we're shooting uphill, so it necessitates a bit of a tilt on the camera. Pure guesswork. All part of the fun of pinhole photography. So, release the camera shutter. That does nothing, just lifts the mirror. This is the business end. Cable release. Opens the pinhole shutter. And away we go. Another 2-minute exposure. So we're coming to the end of our exposure. Another few seconds to go. The lights remain constant throughout the 2-minute exposure, so we'll stick with that once again. And release the pinhole shutter, close the pinhole shutter. Advance the film winder. That lowers the mirror once again. Ready for the next shot. Ready for frame number 4. The sun's gone in, so we may need to fly by the seat of our pants and increase exposure. or decrease it if the sun comes back out. Looking at this, we're probably looking at a 4-minute exposure. Let's suck it and see. Again, fire the camera, should release. That lifts the mirror. Here's the cable release to open the pinhole. And sun's out, there we go already. So for now we'll stick with that basic 2-minute exposure. So once again, coming to the end of our 2-minute exposure. The sun's gone in, but it held out mostly very bright during the 2 minutes, the vast majority of the 2-minute exposure, so we'll leave it at that and we'll shut that down now. Frame 5 now, probably the last one of the day actually. We moved on again, and as you can hear at the start of this clip, the wind is absolutely horrendous. I can barely hear myself think, let alone speak. So I'll just talk you through this next section. We're actually up on the Yorkshire Moors by now. Looking over Killamore in the shot. Pretty much a bit of rinse and repeat here. About a 2-minute exposure again. If you could decipher it in the beginning of the commentary there, that was pretty much the last shot of the day. Another frame, number 5. Another day, another location. Roker Pier this time. 30 seconds exposure. We've given it a minute for a bit of reciprocity. I think we'll double up on that and give that a 2-minute exposure just to see how those Devon turn out. Okay. Here we are at frame number 8. Location, South Lighthouse at Whitburn. Same again, I think a 1-minute exposure and a 2-minute exposure. Light's pretty consistent again. We're just a few minutes along the coast from the last shot. And much the same as yesterday. Within just a few miles, the wind is picked up to the point where you can't hear yourself speak, so I'll just walk through this one again. Once again, we've had an exposure time of a couple of minutes. It's getting to be a bit repetitive this, but just one more frame to go after this, then that roll's done. Last shot of the day, we're a little bit further up the coast, across the River Tyne, up at St Mary's Lighthouse in Whitley Bay. I won't walk you through the procedures once again. More or less the same as we've had these last couple of days. A remarkably consistent 2-minute exposure or thereabouts. So that's this roll done. Well, there you have it. That's the first roll through the modified body cap on the RZ. All in all, quite happy with the results. We've got a decent set of negatives here to work from, all very consistent. So hopefully sometime soon we'll be getting into the dark room and having a crack at those. One thing that was noted out in the field was we'll need a further modification to the body cap. As you can see here, hopefully, the cable release is very, very close to the outer edge of the body cap. So I think what we'll need to do, it has been a little bit awkward actually screwing this into place. Easy enough here, but a little bit awkward on the camera. So what I intend to do is just scoop out a little bit. There's plenty to play with here. Scoop out a little bit of plastic here, just so that we've got plenty of room to get the cable release secured into the pinhole unit. Other than that, I'm very happy with the way it went. As I said before, next port of call on plan of the film will be the dark room. Get a neg in the enlarger and see what she looks like on the baseboard, and we'll knock out a couple of prints and just see what sort of outcome we get from this lovely little pinhole unit. See you next time.